myself, little pieces of tape on a drafting table. And when I was all done, it was going to have 8 holes in the board, and I redesigned it a different way so that I'd only have 5 holes in the board. And I didn't relay it out, I just redesigned, changed the whole circuit and everything, and because it had to be that perfect if it's part of yourself. Okay, next question?
Just perhaps one in between, one of the things that you mentioned a couple of times was that you tried to get your ideas accepted by big companies, engineering companies, or even HP at the time, over and over again. And they weren't accepted because they were out of the box.
Worse than that, Hewlett-Packard eventually, while we were selling Apple I's, they started up a project on my floor of the lab. And they had a microprocessor, they had dynamic memory, they had a little TV screen, they had a tape drive, all the things I just done. They had 5 people assigned to writing BASIC, and I had just written one. And so I went over to the project manager and I said, I don't have to be any big-time job, I'll just do anything, a printer interface, any simple job. Computers are my life, not calculators. I want to be on this project. And they turned me down for that too.
Do you think that that culture has changed today?
I think the culture at HP is probably less open.
Just that engineering culture, that corporate culture, that ideas are better accepted.
That ideas? I don't understand the question.
Would you have?
Oh, no. There's a problem. Here's the problem.
People with these ideas.
Hewlett-Packard was actually right. They would have had to do the product in a way they finally did their own computer, and it was just a flop. It was not going to really be interesting to people. It didn't have the fanciful characteristics because it had to be Hewlett-Packard name. The corporate culture carries over to products that get designed, and that's why a lot of companies can't take little pieces inside of themselves that might become big and make it their style of product. It's very, very difficult to let a company go out and do something that's so different than yourself. You almost have to keep your connection to them invisible.
All right.
Hi, thank you very much. That was a wonderful talk and very inspiring. I have a question about computers and technology and kids. There is a lot of debate about the role that technology and computers should play in kids' education. And for example, at our school, we're trying to figure out, should we have put into place this 1 PC per kid kind of policy, and there's a fair amount of debate. And I seem to remember I read someplace that you actually took some time off and taught. And I was wondering, I bet you probably have some views on this, and I'd be interested to hear what they are.
Yes, a couple things come from knowing myself was, even after Apple was hugely successful, I went back to college under a fake name and got my college degree at Berkeley under the name Rocky Raccoon Clark. And it says it on my diploma. And I also went and I wanted to teach 5th grade all my life. I went and taught for 8 years. 5th graders, I taught advanced classes up to 9th grade, I taught teachers. So I did a lot of hands-on teaching. I got very involved with school districts, and I have a lot to say about that. As far as computers per student, laptops per student, a lot of one state just decided to give up on it in the United States. It can be very expensive because there are a lot of breakages when people use laptops the way laptops should be used, taken everywhere. Home, school, the park, grandma's, on the bus, but the way computers are used in school right now, there are some very interesting programs that are very animated books, but it's not like a real teacher. It's not like somebody who looks at you and knows the name of your sister and can ask a question, how's she doing? It's not like somebody who can look at your face and tell that you're stressed today and strained and maybe we should go lighter today. Or somebody that can, just work up until you learn the level, go back and reteach. You don't get that from a real teacher in school, but you don't get it from today's, today's computer software does have a lot of going back and making sure you learn the subject before you pass through. That suggests a future where instead of a fixed presentation from a teacher to a class all at once, and a variable which is a grade, you could possibly select the grade as a fixed element. Go into school, if you had your own, each student had their own computer. I want A's in all the subjects, I just want to pass this other thing. And the computer will just, over the year, let them go at different rates. Some students will be years ahead of others, but they'll still be in the same classroom. And the computer would have to be very much more human. Artificial intelligence has taken very few real steps in our life. It's almost like simulated. It's always simulated intelligence, and we could demonstrate one little facet that's pretty amazing, but it doesn't ever apply into an intelligent device that could even walk into my house and make a cup of coffee, like you could. So, so I'm glad. I think computers have helped schools out a lot, but they should only be used where they're, you know, efficient and take less resources and less money to get more done. And I don't think that everyone is a computer learner well. And some kids are and some aren't, more than others. And oddly enough, the ones that were academically low in school were the ones that did the best in my computer classes. And I wasn't teaching computer science. I was teaching how to use a computer to make your homework look good. You know, standard school things. How to use it in everything in school. And I would teach these 5th graders, 200 hours a year. That was an awful lot. You have to learn how to take care of your own computer. You have to learn networks. You have to learn cameras. There's an awful lot to it. And normally people would say, oh, you know, 20 hours, you're computer literate. And it's not at all the case. Next.
Steve, I have 2 questions. One is, I'm curious how you use your days now. What do you do during your typical day? And the second is, where is today's homebrew club? Which is a way to ask, you know, where is the boiling new thinking of the new Steve Wozniaks and others? What's the next thing coming up?
Okay, what do I do with my time? Aside from traveling to places like this, I have a new startup company. My last son graduated high school 2 years ago. So ever since then, I've been extremely busy, busier than ever before in my life, because I'm free. I got a big home. I'm all alone. I travel the world to give speeches like this. I meet people everywhere I go. Meeting people is a great thing. I have started up a company, and we're actually making chips, and with a couple former Apple executives, and I don't have a fixed role in that company yet, but we just finally, after 2 years, made our acquisition that was needed. I play a lot of Segway Polo. It's a neat little game I like to play. And I wrote a book. I actually wrote a book. Somebody here even had some copies of it. And I went on a book tour. I've never done that, never taken the time for that. So I'm so busy, I'm only home. There's the book back there, the German version of it. I love the cover of the German one. I love the German one the best. And I only get home about 50 days out of the year. Rare, not enough to really see my pet dogs. And what was the second part of the question?
What's the new
The new homebrew club. Well, the closest thing I think to it is we just recently, in my area, had a fair for the 2nd year called the Maker Fair. There were so many people there. I drove around for 20 minutes and couldn't find parking, and I was supposed to speak there. And it's just all these do-it-yourselfers that are taking projects that almost have no reason to be built. They're not like company projects. They probably couldn't be sold, but they do build them in an interesting way that, how would anyone think of that? Why would a person have done that? You know, and it starts out with the simple ones that have been around for a few years, like you take some MIDI music and you have some motors that bang the drums. So they're real drums being banged instead of coming out electronically. And it's just like, you know, a lot of these things, why would somebody do it? But it's different ways of looking at things. And if the next product that changes life isn't in that Maker Fair, the person who's going to create it is. So those are the people that are going to, because they're always, you know, they're just trying to build things just basically for fancifulness, for life, for entertainment, for love. And I don't know if specifically other clubs, I think all young people have a desire to create some things, or there's a lot of us that have a desire to create once we learn how to, be it software, be it hardware, be it mechanics. And that quantity doesn't go up or down over time. It just finds its places where it has meaningfulness to us, and kind of like things you read about that reach the masses. And it's hard, you can't predict it ahead of time. You couldn't have predicted Apple ahead of time. Another question?
Yeah, my question is about the situation when the IBM PC came out. What was the state of mind at Apple? Were you aware that this could be a threat, or were you ignoring it, or what went on? Why did they win, apparently?
The IBM PC, going back to my comments about the business market, the small business market, expanding Apple's sales 10 times, we suddenly realized this was a market we should pursue. And we developed a machine called the Apple III, which was a pre-built business machine. It was basically an Apple II and the 2 cards that businessmen love to buy. A card that gave them a bigger spreadsheet on their display, and a card that gave them more memory for a bigger spreadsheet. And we built it into one machine and we totally failed. We had horrible